Hey everybody. Let me get that back up there. Hey, Sick Jake here. How's it going? This is my first YouTube stream. I've done videos in the past. You can check my extensive video library uploaded over the last 3 years. Mostly embarrassing Twitch clips. Yeah, that's what I do. Okay, so what we're doing today. Look, I'm part of a podcast. It's called Press B to Cancel. The greatest podcast you'll listen to until the next one. That's probably better. But I still like what we do. You know, there's 4 of us that do it, and we've been doing it for over a year, and we have almost 50 episodes. And I've always wanted to put it up on YouTube, right? There's recent surveys that say that a lot of people, I'm not sure who, but a lot of people listen to podcasts on YouTube. So, hey, we should do that, right? But I don't want to just throw them up there. That's boring. That's no good. No. I want to do it with some gameplay footage, and that's what I've been doing. There's a few episodes up on the Press B YouTube channel right now, and we've slowly been getting those together and put them up. But then I realized if I'm listening to these episodes, which, to be honest, it's been a year for me too, and I'm getting a chance to play these games that were part of those episodes, why not stream that too? And I can talk over the episodes, answer questions if anybody cares to, and just, you know, put it all together. So that's what I'm going to do. So on my channel, Sick Jake on YouTube, we're going to call it, I don't know, Talking Over It. It's like a podception. Sick Jake talks over his podcast he does while playing these games at the same time. So that's what we're going to do. That's the plan of attack for today. The episode that we're doing right now is episode 8 of Press B to Cancel, which was titled NES Hard On, released August of last year. And, you know, the guys I do this with talked about various hard Nintendo games, but really, there's only one game that is worth putting on this episode, I think. And considering I do all the video editing for this, I'll pick it. And that's right, I'm going to pick the 11th hardest Nintendo game of all time. That's right, 11th hardest of all time. Ninja Gaiden? No. Battletoads? It's easy. Silver Surfer might be difficult. It's higher up the number. It's not the 11th. Look, there's all kinds of games, and I get flack repeatedly over saying this one game is difficult. But I don't care. I'm going to play it. God damn it. And I'm going to beat it. Maybe not all at once. You know, it's like a 6-hour game. So 12 for me. But it's hard. And there's one particular boss, a sun and a moon, that I want to beat now. So we're going to listen to the podcast episode. I'm going to play Kirby with it. And we're going to try and beat this son of a bitch. That's what we're going to try and do. And let me just switch over, because that stinger transition was loud. I'm really sorry for that. Oh, not that sorry. Maybe a little bit sorry. Hold on. Here we go. Let's do it the old classic way. Bring on the copyright complaints. That's right. The game I'm saying is hard as Kirby, okay? Look, the laughter stops now. This game is hard. I don't care who you are. Look, you may have a kid at home who's playing Fortnite blindfolded, right? Tyson, blindfold, no problem. Kirby can beat it. Good for him, okay? That child's a prodigy, and if you have a kid like that at home, you should enroll him in the highest universities on a scholarship program to be esports superstar, because Ninja, look out, because your child is amazing. Me, this game is hard. I don't care what you say. Kirby is hard. The Game Boy one is harder, I'll admit that. And I have beaten that. I've even beaten the hard mode of Kirby on Game Boy. But something about this Nintendo one is difficult. I don't know. I don't get it. So we're going to try it. As soon as my controller turns on. And let's turn down the music. Give me 1 sec. Boom. And then let's start off the episode, because that's like kind of the whole point, right? Oh, that's silence. Where's my episode? Did we lose it? You can tell it's my first stream in a long time. There we go.
NES hard. Today on
Yeah.
Press B to cancel.
Press B to cancel. There we go. So I'm going to play as best I can, and we'll just listen
Welcome
together.
to Press B to Cancel, everybody.
And hear
I'm
how
Punch
they're
109.
wrong, but the hardest Nintendo games.
With me are the esteemed guests that have been here with me for every other episode, and the guys that know what they're talking about.
Wait.
Way more
The
than
other
me.
guys have been here every episode?
Okay, never mind. So, Werewolf, welcome to the show. If this has been your first time, I don't think it has. Okay. How about you introduce yourselves really quick? Everybody knows each other here. We've been on the show together since the beginning. And, of course, Werewolf is here for the first time ever today.
Thank you for
We
having
do these
me.
gags.
Humbled to be here.
I don't know if they're funny.
Humble to be here. Okay.
But damn it,
And,
we're going
we
to do
also
it.
have Guy Prime from the Retro Therapy, also known as GP.
Hey, what's going on? And before we go any further, Paul, you did say you would sign my community service
You see?
thing for the court, right?
Yeah, for volunteer
Yes.
service.
Yeah. Okay. Thank
There
you.
we go.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so now that we got that, that's full discretion. Everything's covered. We also have Sick Jake.
It's my first day. Thank you. Really
It's your
is.
first day. Every day is like my first day. Okay, so guys, on our first day here, we're going to talk about NES Hard. All right, the term that people have come to use either adoringly or hatefully. What I want to say is just discuss a few things with you guys, see what we can come out of it. But it's a lot more subjective than I thought it was going to be. There are a few theories, there are a few facts. Some of them are a little bit more obvious than others, but some of them are things that make you go,
Yeah,
That's
like
how the song
Kirby.
goes. But let's just start off real quick. I want to say
Oh, that's not
old
A.
NES games were hard, poor designed, needlessly difficult. That's something I subscribed to up until about a year ago. And so when we were talking about episode ideas, this one really stuck out to me because I totally agreed with that. And in theory, I kind of do because NES games are hard. We have a ton of games that people are scared to touch, and you will watch somebody on Twitch or any other platform
Or on YouTube.
just playing it because you want to see someone suffer like you did as a child. So let's just talk about it. Like I said, I'm going to do the schoolboy thing here. We're going to start with a definition. This is, like I said, the first definition that suited my purposes, so it worked out really well. Definition
that
of
one.
game is a form of play or sport, especially a competitive one, played according to rules and decided by skill, strength, or luck. All right? That's something that you can argue with a lot of modern games sometimes. But skill, strength, and luck are some major components to it, and game design was built around that a lot more often than you'd expect. I want to talk about the hardware side of it a little bit with Werewolf here, and could you just tell me a little bit? We're going to skip out. We had Atari to start with, basically, and we stepped up and we basically doubled the power hardware-wise.
Nope.
I'm going to argue with that. We'll just say that. But what was the biggest difference between Atari and NES, would you say, in a nutshell?
Over time, it really became the ability to have playing boards that were much bigger than one screen. They could scroll along and extend, go up,
Oh,
down,
shit.
whichever,
See?
left, right.
See?
They could show more characters on screen, more sprites, more details, more colors,
Come on. Throw it.
more. I believe it had the ability to play more sound channels, so you could have something that
come on.
more resembled music. In
You
general,
son
it
of a
was
bitch.
more. I think the only thing it had less of was the overall color palette. But even then, it could show more on screen.
Exactly. So everything was amped up, you know?
The hell's
Another
that?
thing that was common with, I got to say, that started out with early NES games. I think
love that.
Jake might actually
Nothing.
be able to tell what I'm thinking about here. Jake, what's something that Atari and NES had in common really at the start?
Well, when it comes to Atari, there was definitely that technical limitations, and that expanded, of course, with the NES hardware. But early on with Nintendo, you can tell that game developers didn't quite know what to do with that additional space
I
and
can't
power.
get that. Are you serious?
So much like the Atari games, which were all based around high score,
There we go.
there was almost never an ending to an Atari game. There's always an infinite loop through the levels that got harder as you go. A lot of early Nintendo games were the same. One example
Good
for me
old
would probably be like
Loop
Balloon
Tune.
Fight, for example.
Ghouls and
Balloon
Ghosts, for
Fight
example.
had a series of levels. It was almost entirely score based, though. A lot of it was based on score.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of early Nintendo games that are all the idea of a score and difficulty increasing, but not not increasing difficulty in the way of the level design, but more just the enemies got harder, got faster. That infinite loop
That's something.
was definitely prominent for the early Nintendo games, and it felt a lot like Atari stuff.
Okay, so like, you could have more responding enemies and, more pinch points in, a level or stuff like that. Is what you're getting at?
Yeah.
Would you call it bad design, or would you call it more learning along the way? Because this is really early in video game history, right?
Well, it's all at the time unwritten manual. This is all early design, right? This is all brand new for them at the time. And when you look at, I mean, you had a system on Atari, you had Asteroids and Space Invaders. There were no levels, right? The one Atari game I loved was Keystone Capers. And I think the only thing that really changed with that was the number of elements on the screen, the number of enemies increased with each gameplay loop. Otherwise, it's identical. Right. If you're lucky, the colors would change. But with the Nintendo, with the more space, you had the ability to actually do true levels. But early on, they didn't know how to do that. And you had a lot of looping gameplay. And I think that's just a learning experience for Nintendo and what they could do with it. This is also just after the Atari video game crash. And I think a lot of developers wanted to play a little bit safe in the beginning. They didn't want to experiment too drastically. They want to make sure that they didn't crash like the Atari did.
I hear you. That's I couldn't put it better myself, actually. That's great because, video games, they were trying to design them to be arcade cabinets for your house. You wanted to play a video game that you could play like Riger. You could play it at home or you could play it in the arcade. You wanted that experience. But, arcade cabinets, of course, had much better hardware. They had, could handle more stuff going on. So it's great. But, there's limited capacity in a cartridge, and, the hardware and the software are very limited. They're still learning. This is all just breaking ground. So what ends up happening is we have to make everything kind of better at once.
Whatever.
We need to keep people engaged in more than one way. It can't be like conversation with games now is it's a great story, or the gameplay is tight, or it's never difficulty unless you're talking about Dark Souls, and that's the thing about
true
Dark
still
Souls.
today.
I can't stand the series. I love
Good
watching
story.
them. I can't play them.
Makes a game that's hard
but
that
it
much
has a
worthwhile.
lot more in common with NES than I ever thought. And we'll get into that a little bit. One thing that we want to talk about is subjective. Everybody has a different experience. This is going to be harder for me than anything else. I can't play Contra without 30 lives cheat. GP, on the other hand, can do it usually deathless, and he does it constantly, and it makes me angry, and so I hate it when he plays Contra. But GP, I got some questions for you, actually, since you are obviously much better at these platformers than me.
Wait, that's it?
So are you open for questions, Doctor?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm currently taking questions. Go for it.
Okay, perfect. So, early NES games, would you say they're harder at a glance than, say, Super NES or N64 or anything newer?
In my opinion, yes. Yeah. Sorry, do you want me to go on and elaborate, or do you just want the one-word answer?
Give me a little elaboration here. Let's see what's going on in the brain of GP.
Well, I don't know. We're doing blind runs. You guys know that. And puberty this year. Apparently, I'm hitting puberty finally. But no. And
congratulations!
Going back and
I'm still waiting.
Just in time for the wedding.
Right.
Yeah.
No. So going back and doing all these blind runs and playing these games for the first time, most of them have been NES, and there is definitely, in my opinion, just that NES hard level that does not exist from Super Nintendo on. Super Nintendo definitely had its own type of difficulty, but regardless of if it's platformers or RPGs, you look at Zelda, it's definitely, there's a level of difficulty there, and it's a coin toss with whether or not you think it's good stage design or well thought out stages. I think of like Contra, or if you think of just the developers trying to make something that will make a kid want to rent the game endlessly, such as Adventure Island, where it's just death after death after death. But so for me, the question is, at least with platformers, is it trolley design or brilliant design that makes something NES hard?
Now, can I challenge you and say, why not both?
Well, no, I think that's ultimately where it's got to come down. Like I was saying, it's either...
Can I just slash him?
It's either going to be the good game design that is difficult, but you can tell the developers want you to win. They give you the opportunity. They just say, this is the way we want you to do it, but you could do it other ways. Or it's just memorization patterns, which I kind of tend to think that memorization are the weaker forms of platformers. To give you an example, Battletoads. Battletoads has a lot of great things in it, but the part that people really get hung up on the most, when I did my blind run of that, everybody said,
Turbo Tunnel.
With the turbo tunnels. Well, that is pure memorization. There's no RNG, so far as I can tell. It's just high-paced memorization.
Exactly, and that's a major part of it. So
yeah, and if you zoom out and look at that game as a whole, the weaker parts of the game, in my opinion, are the memorization ones. But the stuff with RNG and the platforming,
still
that's
a great
really
game. I love
crux that
Battletoads.
makes a game like Battletoads great.
Not as hard as Kirby, though.
That's fair. You guys, anybody have anything else to chime in on that?
Now, see, I have something to say regarding the RNG that takes it way too far. I don't know if you guys are terribly familiar with the game Werewolf for the NES, but
Oh yeah.
dear God, there is so much RNG in that game for things that hurt you, knock you into pits to kill you. It's absolutely ridiculous, and it makes it not fun.
Okay. Would you
Kidding
say
me.
it's intentional though?
I honestly couldn't tell you. It's probably not, because that game was farmed out to so many different teams at once that
I'm shaking the desk.
I'm pretty sure it was not intended so much as a side effect of how the game was developed.
Can you give an example of why it was hard? Because I've actually never played Werewolf.
Okay,
Actually,
so
still haven't.
the level where it gets
We should
really
probably check that
bad
out.
to the point of near impossibility.
Oh, gotcha.
Because I've seen playthroughs of people going through it, but I've never been able to do it without Game Genie.
The
Level
water?
4.
With the water?
The water stage.
Oh yeah.
There are fish that jump out of the water when you're over a pit of water, and you don't have a whole lot of control to like turn back after you jump. And so you jump, and you gotta hope you're on the right trajectory to be able to attack and hit the fish, assuming everything goes properly, because it's RNG as hell.
Okay, yeah.
And you just, most of the time, you're going to get knocked back.
Son of a bitch.
And you don't even land on the logs that are on the waterfall, the ones that you just jumped
That's
off of.
okay.
You'll fall through them to your death.
That's okay.
Right. And also, they show off the most of the level underwater is what I remember the most about that. You die, and you see yourself die.
Yeah, it's essentially the screen is two screens. The board is 2 screens tall and a bunch of screens long. And they made a point of letting you know you suck because you got hit by this RNG enemy that sent you down to your death, and the whole lower half of the board is watching your werewolf fall to his death and drowning.
Yeah.
So too much RNG
Yeah.
is a bad thing.
Just to go back to Battletoads for a minute, when you look at various sources, top 10 hardest Nintendo games, a lot of them put Battletoads as number 1. I couldn't disagree more, I think, with that game.
I think
I like Battletoads a lot. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, keep going. Sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Just like my wife.
Ouch.
Hey,
Oh,
yo.
God.
No, it's just the best. With Battletoads.
John Bobbitt, is that you?
Uh-oh.
Brutal.
There we go. With Battletoads, the game is hard, but is it hard because the gameplay is difficult, or is it because
Asshole.
the amount of lives and continues you have is incredibly limited? Like, right? And that's my thing with Battletoads, is that I think it's not necessarily difficult in gameplay, but the limitation on what you have
Got
to
it.
play. That's
Got
a
'em.
game I beat as a kid with the Game Genie.
Oh, yeah, but that's another thing, though, that
Should have
you
eaten
to take into
that.
account.
That's
is
okay.
a limitation not just in the hardware, but in the game design itself. They put that in there. You have to lose, or you have something to lose if you actually die. You know, modern games, you get respawned outside of, you know, wherever you just died, or you get sent back to the last checkpoint,
I love
or the last save point. Whatever
do
you,
like this
you know,
game.
go from there. But this is where they put the design in there. You know, sometimes it's called artificial difficulty, and I think that it couldn't be farther from the truth. I mean, this is meant to challenge you. What happens when you die in a game? You start the level over. What happens when you lose all your lives? maybe you have a continue, but you got to start over from that level as opposed to like that checkpoint. So there's a little bit more of a punishment there. What happens if you run out of your continues? Well, you're screwed. You got to start over, and that makes an experience. You don't want to die. you want
even with
to
games
get
with
farther
the
than your friend
continues,
can.
like
Let's
Ninja
challenge
Gaiden,
each other and see who can get to
still
the further
ridiculous.
level.
Wait,
we're
what? I
never
didn't
going to
get
beat
that.
this in the first try, but we're going to see who we can beat.
One more time.
Amongst ourselves. So that's just something I think you get better, and it forces you to get better. And like you said with GP said
go.
with Battletoads, memorization is a huge part of it. It's not just quick reflexes. You show me somebody with the best reflexes who's never played Battletoads, never seen it, and see if they get through the turbo tunnel or through I can't even remember I want to call it speed bikes on crack where you're in the rockets.
Volkmeyer's Inferno.
The pizza cutters.
Volkmeyer's Inferno.
Oh, the
Thank
pizza
you.
cutters.
I
I got it.
there's only there's certain things about that you can't really comprehend on your first go through. Like you have to go forward, you have to go backwards. Up and down is one thing you have to know ahead of time. It's physically impossible to do it the first time. Well, not impossible, but there's more luck involved. So, that is, you can argue that is bad design, but no, it forces you to play through it again. You got to get good, kid, and that's something that Nintendo really forced people to do. You couldn't do that, and there's different reasons for that. You'd practice, practice meant,
All right,
oh
we
crap,
got
I
this.
died again, continue is over. You got to use your memory, your skill, and you got to strategize. The strategy might be, don't kick this guy in the face. You have to punch him 3 times and walk away.
Really?
Like if you're playing Double Dragon or something else like that. The better you get at an old platformer is the more strategy you've implemented in your head. And once you get to that level where you're starting to make it so automatically, you don't even notice it. That's when people are the crazy speedrunners and stuff. I don't even like speedrunning, but you have to admit they're impressive to watch because it's just muscle memory more than any reflex.
God.
They know exactly what's coming and they've practiced. It's like playing an instrument. So
Brutal.
It's a whole different experience because of that.
Get me outta
And that's
here.
the design element. So Jake, I want to talk to you about designing these games, but when they were released, games get tested, right?
Oh, just son of
Well,
a...
they get tested, but when you look at game developers back in that era, the teams were much smaller
Alright.
than they are
Okay.
today. Modern game companies can be 100 employees or thereabouts, right? We didn't have that back with Nintendo.
Jesus Christ.
It's larger than the Atari days where you had some games created by one person. But with Nintendo, you still had teams of under a dozen people in a lot of cases. So the person who was designing the levels would more than likely be the one testing them. I mean, if they did have a QA designer, he's doing something else in the team as well.
Would you...
So you mean that I couldn't go to get a job as a 9-year-old boy at Nintendo but testing games? That's not how that worked?
I don't think it was like that back then. I mean, certainly that's a job that opened up later on with the Super Nintendo Genesis eras.
How do I do
QA
this?
teams for EA and whatnot were notorious. But for the original Nintendo, it's such small teams. It really meant that the person who was the most expert at that game, the developer or the designer,
Brutal.
was the one who was also doing the testing.
So if they're the ones playing the game over and over again, they're constantly knowing and they're, finding all
Got
the
it.
bugs. They know exactly what's coming. So they kind of have the advantage, right?
Well, that's the thing. There's another, to look at another modern game, there's what's the guy's name? Wolf, do you remember the guy's name who made Castlevania? Igaruka, I think his name is?
Koji Igarashi.
Igarashi. Okay, so Igarashi has recently released Bloodstain, which is a throwback to the Castlevania series.
Right.
But I read an article or an interview where they're talking about how they created their game and how they took an approach to testing it. They ensured that everybody testing the game could beat every single boss with the lowest item or the weakest item in the game, a knife. If they couldn't beat the game or the boss with a knife and didn't die, then they had to go back and retool that boss and make it easier.
So right there,
I want to see knife-only
boom,
runs.
100% design.
Of
That is
Bloodstain.
all by
That's what I
design.
wanna see.
And that's exactly what I'm trying to get at here is like they thought this through more than most people ever expected you to. That is something I didn't even know. And I mean, that makes perfect sense. I think that's awesome.
But I mean, you go back to the original Castlevania and you see if they had that philosophy, something tells me they doubt it.
Yeah.
game is
I
still
do
ridiculous.
have something worth considering.
Not as hard as Kirby,
when
though.
Games were brought to North
telling
America
you.
at the very
Nope.
least for the NES, because Nintendo of America had what they called a game master, which was Howard Phillips. He would play the games that were coming over from Japan and determine whether the American market would find them fun or not. So that way, Nintendo of America would be like, yes, we want this one over here. No, we don't want that one. And
It
so
was
on.
all on one guy's shoulders, basically.
But, eventually the team branched out. But you have to consider the fact that when they brought them to North America, these people who would play the games and determine whether they were for the North American market would also give notes to the developers for bringing them to North America and let them know, this should be harder, this should be easier, and so forth. And a lot of times it was making games a bit harder.
Right.
And so
that still amazes me.
part
Like,
of that comes from
Bayou
the fact
Billy,
that these
Mad
guys
City,
just
the
played
Japanese
games
version
for
is
a living.
easier than the
They
American version.
inherently were better at
nuts.
games than the average person. So they were like, yeah, this is too easy. This needs to be harder. And so
is this like a pro sports ball thing? Is this how that
Like
works?
Contra
too?
Hardcore
Wait. Okay, so
has
this
a
is,
health bar in
this
the
is turning
Japanese
out
version.
different than I
It's
thought. This
nuts.
maybe actually sounds like the definition of a game.
yeah, maybe. It's just
Oh no! Okay.
it's just worth considering that the people who
Son of a
determined
bitch.
whether the game was for the North American market could sometimes find the games too easy just because they
Ooh.
played them for a living.
Oh, exactly. And
That was
that's
not a
something
jump,
else.
Kirby.
I mean,
that was not a jump.
Sorry, when if you're going to hear NES hard, the first person who's going to say it is usually from North America because we got a lot more of the easier stuff, And think about the Lost Levels. We've talked about that in a previous podcast. Jake,
All
what was
right.
half the reason they changed from Lost Levels to the Doki Doki Panic version?
Well, the main thing was the difficulty, right? That was one of those games that came across North America, and Howard and his team looked at it and said, there's no way. Lost Levels is far too difficult for the American palate. It's a game machine. It's not meant to be that difficult. We got to find something else. So that's why they went and pulled up Doki Doki Panic. And Lost Levels, when it was released in Japan, it was meant to be more of an expansion, right? It was meant
Okay,
to be
do I
hard.
hear?
They wanted to take people who beat the original Mario and
It's
give them
not.
something that was expanding and more difficult, more challenging. And that's what Lost Levels was. Hard by design, for sure.
Exactly, and that's the thing. So it was hard by design, and that it led to us getting an easier game, completely different game, and that was by design as well. Like that's another element. This is too hard for our audience. This is
All right,
too
we're
easy
getting there.
for another audience. It goes on like that. So these are all conscious decisions. I'll say one more angle I just wanted to touch at before get too far off topic is another situation is when did game rentals come into this? Anybody know? Like when was the explosion of game rentals? Because we all know when it died.
Like in this laser.
Everybody experienced that. That's
Oh.
pretty much old enough
I
to
like it, and I'm
understand
gonna
this
lose it.
podcast. But I mean, most people, we're too young to even realize when the whole rental industry started. And what's going to happen is if you beat a game,
I think we're almost there.
in a weekend,
Almost Sun and
you
Moon,
rent-
I think.
you rent a game for the weekend, you beat it. I felt good. You put it down, never play it again. Has that been the case for you guys? I mean, obviously there's going to be some games that you
Ooh.
play and you play and you play, but if you're renting a game and you beat it the first time when you rent it over the weekend, are you going
Are
to rent
you
it again the next weekend?
kidding
or are you
me?
going to try something new? What about you, GP?
Well, actually, no. I can't say much as to when the video game rentals started, but I can say that my older brother and my older cousins were always the ones who had the insight into what games to try and to rent. My cousins had the Nintendo Power subscription, so they always kind of knew what to look out for. My older brother, of course, being
Alright.
the older brother, kind
Full
of got
health.
dibs on what he wanted to play, which was a good thing because I was clueless. And for me, I just second-handed everything they tried, and if they were addicted to that game
Okay.
over the weekend or whatever
That's
it was,
fine.
I was, shit out of luck. I didn't get to play these games. And honestly, that's kind of what led me to just honing in on the same 20 to 30 games throughout my entire life up until
Probably want to go down there, don't
this
we?
point. So, clearly, kind of to bring this full circle, we talked about the arcade being brought into the home in using these at-home
Please be
arcade
good.
systems, the NES and the Atari and things like
Okay.
that. You can't puff quarters
I
into
had full
those.
health, but you know.
So how are we going to get them to continue renting or buy? You know, like you said, it's ramp up the difficulty. That's the name of the game.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? So,
Oh.
I mean,
Absolutely. I could not agree more. I'm glad that we have NES Hard. But I'm not usually glad that we have it until I beat the game.
yeah, I've seen that actually. I know you are usually on the fence
Get rid of
about a
that.
game, and you're like,
I
it's not
want
bad.
that.
I don't see the appeal. Like, I don't see why people get it. Next thing you know, you beat it, and why are you speedrunning this? What?
Right, yeah.
I thought you didn't like this game, and
All
now
right.
next thing you know,
Okay.
you're practicing
Oh, no.
for a charity event playing this game, or so.
Son of a bitch.
But no, that's fair. Like, that's totally fair, and so that is giving you an experience because you have something to conquer. You know, it's not just beating your way through the game. It's just working. It's beating the game in general, not for the
Man.
ending, but just to say you beat it, and then you can do it again and again. And it's like, hey, this is an accomplishment. You know,
Right.
modern games
Okay.
is something
How do we do
that
this?
it doesn't have that same mentality anymore. The experience of a modern game, because we have such better technology,
There's
we
got to be
can
an easier
put
way.
more
right?
into a story. We can put more into the voice acting or the audio in general, you know, the sound effects, everything. You get a visual novel, but with video
Is
game
this right?
elements, you know, so you're in control of it. It's an experience. We call it a movie experience. You know, it's I don't know how to describe it now, but it was less game and more
Oh,
you know,
son of a bitch.
fantasy experience, if
Okay.
that makes any sense. I'm trying to find the right words, and they're not coming here. But it became less
Okay,
about a
got it.
game and more about
I don't remember this part at
an
all.
experience. If that makes any sense. And I know that a game is an experience, obviously, but you know,
Jesus.
you can pick up and put down an NES game. You know, you want some mindless just video game time just to relax, you can pop in an old NES game.
I mean, they
and
give
see
you-
if you can beat your high
They
score.
give you a lot of health.
Just go through the game entirely,
Right?
see how fast you can beat it. Do whatever you want with it, but you know it's
Really? Apple time?
It is what it is because of what you make with it. The games are very simplified, you know, compared to now, like
I know,
nowadays,
man.
but they make you fill in the blanks, like I've talked about with pixel art. I've talked about the music. The music may be kind of archaic looking back with all the MIDI
All right,
chip
this
tunes,
boss.
but that's part of the
This
charm.
boss.
And they went out of their way to make properly composed music that fit with their themes. So another thing that we can talk about is game length. If you spend some, 6 hours playing Ninja Gaiden, you probably might not beat it. That's the case for me. I probably got into the third level and spent 6 hours on it.
Asshole.
It's one of those. One of the iconic hardest
Nope.
games.
Son of a...
But that game was designed really well. There's limited lives. There's
here.
limited continues. Are there any continues in that? Anybody? I can't even remember.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So there's limited continues. They have respawning enemies, and they'll
Would you
respawn
come down here,
endlessly.
please?
And it seems like a
Come down.
cheese tactic to make the difficulty harder. But
Oh my god.
at
we're
the
gonna
same
die.
time, it's all based on like triggers. So if you run past this screen, you run past this one pixel on the screen, a bird will come out, or a dude will come out who's in your way. You have to find a way. You have to strategize a way around them.
All right, we got this.
Would that be fair to say, or is it just luck and it's pure
Jesus.
reflex? Because sometimes you can't act on that reflex
You
within the constraints
son
of the
of a
game. You can
bitch.
only slash forward or backwards. You
Ugh.
can't do it up or down.
Nope.
You can't do the downward thrust like you can in Zelda in every game. It gets a whole.
Have I said how
lower
much it's
level of
11th hardest
strategy.
Nintendo game ever?
And the games become a
Telling you.
puzzle. Not necessarily Tetris, but
Okay, we can do
you have
this.
to think ahead. You have to strategize, and that's where the muscle memory. That's where
I mean,
the
that part's
experience. That's
stupid.
where the practice all comes in. Before, if you spent, like I said, I was going on talking about 6 hours on Ninja Gaiden. You can beat the game in what, half an hour, 20 minutes, something like that, probably 40 minutes, 50 minutes. I don't even know what the record is, but you can do it in one go. But you might have spent 50 to 60 hours playing that game. What happens if you spent 60 hours
got
playing
this.
a modern
We
video
got
game?
this.
You might be past the tutorials. And to be fair, the games these days often need them because there's so much you can do. I digress.
Missed that one. That's okay.
You can take the lives and continues out the knockback, especially in Castlevania and Ninja Gaiden. Those are all things that are designed in the game. To make them a game, you have to get past this. You get stuck on a spot and you go through
All right.
it. You have to
All
get
right.
past it. Jake, has there ever
Bringing
been
that sun in
games
the
where you
mood.
can't get past a single section because you just can't figure out the pattern, or is it because it's completely unfair? Which one is usually the case?
One good example is a game that when I was researching for this episode, I forgot about, but I had played a lot as a kid, was Top Gun for the Nintendo. And
Still,
much like the movie,
I
you're
swear,
a
an
fighter
impossible
pilot,
game.
taking down bogeys, dodging missiles, that type of thing. And it seems not that difficult at first, and it's actually quite fun. The shooting gameplay works. But one part that was always death for me, I could just never get past it, was at the end of every level, you had to land the plane on an aircraft carrier. You would adjust your speed, your angle, and all that. And if you didn't nail the timing and the settings, you either fell in the ocean or just rolled off the deck of that ship and fell in the ocean either way. You're dead either way. It was almost impossible for me to land on that aircraft carrier. I felt like I was doing it mostly through luck.
I must have had the knockoff of that game or something, because you just described stealth ATF to a T, except for the aircraft carrier. It's the same thing. That the dogfights were awesome. Then at the end of the stage, you got to land that thing, and you almost always crash it.
Well, I still remember the one section where if you manage to land by dumb luck on the aircraft carrier, the next level you have to refuel in midair, which I'm assuming that's difficult in real life. That makes sense. But why they made it so difficult in the game, I don't know. But you had to line up with this nozzle that comes down the screen. And if you miss it, you take too long, the fucking plane takes off on you and leaves you behind. And then you die without fuel. Like, it was just insane. But the rest of the game was fine. Like, the combat was fine. Everything else, not a problem. It's just the landing in the aircraft carrier and also the precision when you're trying to refuel. Those two parts, I almost never got past in that game.
Yeah. Now, is there a way that it is totally RNG and that you can't
get that one.
adjust to it? Or is it just a matter of painstaking labor of practice?
I think it's more a practice or just knowing the right speed and angle to use. I mean, I've seen people play through that game no problem. But, I mean, they've played enough of it to know what the settings are. As a kid, you're less concerned about details when you're playing these type of games.
Bitch.
And the game is so arcadey, and the combat is mostly combat focused. So when you're faced with the elements of trying to be precision and landing on an aircraft carrier,
He just kamikazes you and
almost
flies
feels
at
like it
your
doesn't
head.
belong in the game. It feels like a different genre at that point, from arcade to simulation, and that part was really difficult as a kid.
You just triggered something in my head too. Another thing when we're talking about arcadey games, a lot of the earlier NES titles were trying to emulate arcade games, but something that we developed along the way was the ability to save or use passwords. Now, you couldn't do that earlier on, and then they figured out how to do it, and then all of a sudden they could put more into it.
No.
Even with, you can use passwords to kind of bypass almost the whole lives and continues thing, or add on to it. So, if this isn't enough, then you can start over here. This is punching your password. Boom. We're at level 4 again. We're about to suffer through it. Anything you got to think about that, or?
Yeah. So again, what you mentioned about arcade games, bringing arcades home. One of the design decisions behind arcade games was they want you to keep feeding in quarters, right? So the games are artificially made difficult to get more money into your pocket. Now you bring those games home to the Nintendo. One example I'm going to say is Ghouls and Ghosts, which I actually like the game, but it's brutally difficult, right? You get one hit, you lose your armor. Second hit, you die.
Fair.
And then if it's the arcade, you have to feed another quarter.
All right.
But they obviously you paid full price for a game. You don't need that, but they don't want to redevelop the game from scratch. So instead they put in, I want to say it's Infinite Continues for Ghouls and Ghosts, or Ghosts and Goblins. I can't remember which one it was.
It was Ghosts and Goblins, and yes, it was Infinite Continues.
Right.
Though it was completely possible to screw yourself by picking one player instead of going down to continue.
Oh, yes, I remember that because I did that recently on the Switch has that NES collection. I did that once, and that pissed me off.
Wonder if that was deliberate.
Yeah, I think that could have been an effect for the developers to kind of troll with us too, because this is my argument. There's no proof of this, but I could say, making it easy to accidentally
Wow.
go end instead of continue.
Wow.
Kind of makes you slow things down a little bit, and you got to be careful that you don't screw it up. So that's my little argument. I'm trying to debate this topic a little bit and try to show that everything's by design. When of course, it not always is. Let's look at point and click adventures.
What?
Those can be ridiculous.
How the
There
hell
can
do you
be
do that?
stuff with like you said with Werewolf, where it was just the RNG was making it impossible.
brutal.
So it becomes luck more than skill or strategy, and I think that's bad design in my opinion. It does add an element of risk
we got this.
and
Yep.
reward
Nope.
when you actually beat it, but it can be a little bit tricky sometimes. So yeah, so some games were made poorly as a result of let's try to get this out. Other games are trying to make you stick with it. They don't make more money if you buy the cartridge and die a million times in Ghosts and Goblins. They do if you're playing the arcade, but not for the cart. So that was part of the rental thing too. Is rentals also affected the industry? What do you think about it, GP?
About rentals?
About rentals, yeah. Just want to ask you about that first.
Okay. I think the idea behind
this
rentals,
sucks.
as Sick Jake kind of mentioned earlier, was
Whoop.
you can't
Okay.
pop quarters into the games when you're at home.
Jesus.
So you make
All
it
right.
work. But depending on your age and what you rent, that is what's going to impact how quickly the turnaround is. I mean, if you're a kid and you rely on your parents to take you to Blockbuster or wherever to rent the games, you're kind of stuck to their mercy. But there is,
Jesus.
if you make it to stage 5 in Doki Doki Panic, and you've got to return that game, there's a timer in your head almost saying, I have to go get that again as soon as possible so that I don't forget how to do what I've already done. And
Exactly.
so we've talked a little bit about luck and stage design, but a lot of that is also the idiocy of the player, which I think I'm kind of the human
That's trolling.
embodiment
Just
of that
trolling.
idiocy. And that's also where the life hack, the original life hack of leaving your NES on overnight came from.
All right.
This may never
Okay.
happen again. I have to leave the game on before I go to bed.
Exactly.
Right. So, and then of course we talked about the bigger games. You had mentioned some of the point and click adventures. I am going to piss some people off by discussing the Zelda games. Those games were long when you first run them, and they are medium length when you know what you're doing. But
I'd agree with that.
Zelda,
right?
Metroid, it is exploration, pure and simple. So it doesn't matter how good or intuitive the stage design is. If you're new to it, you're bombing everything, looking for hidden entrances. It's not as simple left and right, obvious as Mega Man or Contra or even Ghosts and Goblins, no matter
It's
how
more of
hard
an
those games
adventure.
might be.
Oh yeah, plenty of Zelda is a
Ugh.
time sink of just an entirely different.
Again with
fashion.
this guy.
Yeah, and that's kind of what led to games giving you more of an experience as opposed to
All right.
just
okay.
having a high score or competition. You know what I mean?
It's the journey, right? That the adventure games are meant about the exploration. That's the point of that type of game.
Yeah, and this is before you have a fancy ending that you kind of look forward to and say, I want to see how this turns out. This is, where does this lead? And it's exactly
Jeez.
it's a time
All right.
sink, but in the best way as far as I'm concerned.
I agree.
I actually, I have a personal anecdote that's
Okay.
kind of in
We
Nintendo's
got this. We
favor
got
on their
this.
stance on making games harder because of rentals.
Okay.
While not an NES game,
All right,
I
let's
did
just get
once
outta here.
rent
Let's just get outta here.
Aladdin for the Super Nintendo.
No.
Nice.
Within 2 hours of renting it, I had beaten the game.
Oh, this
yeah,
is.
I remember
This is shitty.
So
that one too.
I took
No.
I took it back
No.
and asked them to let me rent something else
Oh my
because
God.
that game was just so quick it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So they
Alright.
let me rent something
Alright.
else, something that wasn't
Just-
like
can you
brand
let me
new
in
on
there?
the shelf because they were like, well, you did already rent this other thing. But I was like, okay, cool. So I rented something else. But I've never played that version of Aladdin again.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Games became more disposable, and for better or worse, that's
What do we got?
how it's gone.
What?
How about Jake? Do you have any experiences with rentals?
Well, yes, I do.
That sounded rehearsed.
Me? No. I didn't Google this 5 minutes ago. No, but what Wolf just said is the number one reason why Nintendo did not like rentals, right? The VHS or the tape, rental store started in the late 70s, but games didn't start coming out until, I want to say, mid-80s.
Shit.
And Nintendo tried to block
You
it
got
with
me.
lawsuits. Basically, they took Blockbuster to court, for example, and Blockbuster actually won the right to take Nintendo games and then rent them. Nintendo wanted people to buy the games.
Remember
right off the
Blockbuster?
bat. Why? Because some games you could beat within
Nobody
an hour.
knows now.
I still have I remember one game I played. It wasn't Nintendo. It was a Genesis title, Ren and Stimpy. I borrowed it from a friend of mine. I beat it in 20 minutes. No lie. 20
wow.
minutes.
Yeah, 20 minutes.
If
I
I
did it
paid
recently
full
too.
price for that game, I would have been upset. And Nintendo
Yeah.
had a lot of games where you could beat them very quickly. So Nintendo hated the rental industry because it let people experience their titles and finish them very quickly. And that trend of lawsuits continued throughout the 80s. They even had one in 1990. It went to the House, and they had to rule on it. And again, Nintendo of Japan said that this is hurting our bottom line. By renting these games out to people who can probably beat them for $8 or $5, what the cost of rental is, they're not paying the full price of the game. You're hurting our bottom line. And the courts upheld the decision and said, no, it's
What?
no problem with renting out titles. It's no different than the
Jake, you
video
can't-
home video market.
You can't hide.
Right. And that's fair. I mean, in regards to rentals positions, but Nintendo had a point, but that was on them. So they make games harder, And not all games. I mean, not everything's as fun and as easy as Kirby. And Kirby was
Son of a
made
bitch.
to make things fun. I mean, Kirby is not a hard game, but they're great. And
Here it comes.
I want to play a Kirby game just as much as I want to play, a Castlevania game sometimes. Sometimes you just want to play
Oh,
something.
you.
And
Well, hold
it
on.
depends on the mood.
What Kirby game is not hard? Which one?
The first one.
The first one? The Game Boy one?
No, the Nintendo one. That's not the
That
first
game
one.
is hard. What's wrong with you? That's
Son
the
of a
one
bitch.
boss fight with the moon and sun. That was a hard-ass boss fight.
One boss fight, man. I don't even
All right.
know. I just
Hold on.
remember it being easy for me.
Sorry, my 7-year-old daughter's chiming in here. Kirby is easy. Okay. Very good.
Oh.
Evidence is in front of you people.
Nice.
I'm just a scrub. I see how it is.
It's hard.
That game is... I challenge you to play that game again.
I did on stream.
I've never beaten Kirby, but that's usually because I get so bored.
Oh.
And I'm sure I'm going to get some hate for saying that, but I've beaten
No,
the
I'm not
Game Boy
bored.
one, the NES one. I've never beaten just because I get bored along the way.
Yeah. And, I mean, see, this is the thing. And things get subjective along the way, when it comes to difficulty and stuff. Jake just
Not
said it's
bored, but
hard.
this is definitely hard.
I had no problem. You quit it because it was too easy, GP's 7-year-old daughter says, you're all nubs. It comes down to experience. Everybody's going to have a different experience, and NES hard is a very subjective thing, even though there are a lot of elements that
Ooh.
make hard games or hard elements to these games.
What? Oh,
For
come
me,
on.
I hated NES games up until like a year and a half, 2 years ago, because I couldn't
go
get it to
away.
work. That's age. My console is worn out. Carts don't want to work. When they did, they crap.
All right.
Half the time they might crap
What
out
the hell?
mid game if
Ooh,
the wind changed.
That's close.
The difficulty was NES hard, and I felt it was because they didn't know how to make games. I just felt like this is hard for the sake of hard. Now I know better. Like they're hard on purpose. For different reasons. We can talk about that for hours, and that's the thing. I think I'm getting tongue tied because
You
there's
son
so
of a
many
bitch.
angles we can talk about, and we can talk about one angle for hours. But they're meant to challenge you.
I want
And,
this hammer.
renting a game and beating it in a weekend is one thing, or 20 minutes in Jake's case. But you never buy it, right? You don't want to play
all
it
right.
again. You didn't want
Okay.
to play Aladdin again. So NES didn't have the hardware to having
Wow.
engrossing storylines
Just
and
wow.
good gameplay. If it was an engrossing storyline, it was probably a point and click adventure, which was mostly text based, and they were hard for a myriad of other reasons. Like there's just trial and error half the time, and there was no learning curve. It was just hope for the best. Shadowgate has probably got one of the best soundtracks I've ever heard for an NES game, but I hate playing it because
It's
if
not
I
so
don't
bad.
know
I
exactly
actually like
what to
Shadow
do,
Game.
then you're lost, and you just have to die over and over again. So
Wait, what?
NES being hard, it kind of forces
hell
you to
is
fill
that?
in the blanks.
Really?
You know, you had to experience it. You want to be a plumber that, you know, gets mushrooms and gets powerful, or you want to be a guy that's fighting aliens, or you want to be a vampire hunter, or you want to be a giant pink puff that eats everything in his path. I mean, I'm kind of like that now
Okay. This is
in
stupid.
real life, but you know,
We can do
you
this.
have. There's no way to put the stories in there. You have to kind of put yourself in there. The same way when you're reading a book. You know, the book is always better than the movie.
Got it.
So
Okay.
for me, I think a lot of retro games for me,
Okay.
because of the difficulty, because of the fact that you have
What
to
the hell's
fill in
that
the
do?
blanks, it's like reading a book. I just want.
Oh,
I'm gonna have a
minigames.
couple more points, and then I just want to.
Sure.
We'll top it off with
Whatever.
everybody. We'll just talk about our like number one
Whoop.
game we fear the most. You know why?
Gotcha, son of a
Why is
bitch.
this the hardest game that you played, or why one of them, and you don't want to touch it? I think I know what Jake's is already, but that's not for NES.
You don't know me.
You don't know me. But one thing too,
You
also,
don't know Jake.
You also have
I
one
should
thing
forget what I said for this
now
one.
that is built into the game that wasn't there before that I want to mention is manuals. And my God, I miss manuals. Do I ever miss the instruction manuals? That was what I did when I rented a game
What?
before I'd play the game. If it was just enough to read in the car trip home, which was only a few minutes for me, okay, I know what I got to do. I know what this button does. I know what that button does. Good. If it wasn't,
sure.
and it was longer, like say for, you know, something a little bit more complex, I
All
would
right.
sit down on the couch
Get
and
in
read
there,
it
get
before
in
I even
there.
put the card in. I might have been the only person who does
No.
that. I don't know. I wanted to
What
play
ups?
the game, but I wanted to feel prepared for it. And so reading the instructions for me is always the thing.
One up.
Like I do that with my tools now, even when I buy a new tool. So it kind of works out that way. But
Let's get
they
some
don't have the
eggs.
same information. You have to feel it out sometimes.
Let's get some eggs.
Some people are okay with that. Others aren't. You know, this is hard. This is easy. But either way, we got a lot of stuff in common now with
Shit.
modern games
Nope.
that I don't want to touch than we ever
Yep,
did
I've
with
not yet
NES
done
games. And because of the difficulty and because of the play style, the design of the games where you're designed to be hard to challenge you, for me, a true
All right.
game these days
Here we
are
go.
the ones that I don't want to touch, like first-person shooters.
Fucking
You know,
hate this
you have
boss.
to take out other
Fucking
players.
son of a
You know,
bitch.
so it is skill and reflexes. It's not
Well,
memorization.
Jesus
You
Christ.
might have strategies you can employ, but that's it, right? But those are games I don't
No,
want to
son
touch,
of
but
a
at the same
bitch.
time, they have the most in common with these earlier games for difficulty when it comes to
What do you do?
skill and
Whoop.
reflexes.
Okay.
But a lot of the stuff
Can
is
I eat that?
memorization. A lot of the stuff is just experience and going through
No.
it again. You don't have that same kind of experience now because of all the checkpoints, the autosave, auto aim. You know, things really change the experience.
You son
Either
of a
way,
bitch.
I can gush about this for hours. So again, let's just talk about the final.
Oh my God.
What's the nail in the coffin for you, there, werewolf? I want to hear about what's one game that makes you fear.
Okay, so there's a game that I've been wanting to play and actually beat for years.
Telling
It's
you.
called Legacy of the Wizard.
Telling
I don't
you.
know if you
Hardest
guys know
game.
of it or not, but it's part of the Xanadu/Fax Xanadu series.
Oh,
It's like a
Oh,
side
fuck.
story type of game, but it's like an action RPG platformer. Very early Metroidvania.
I'm interested.
And you actually have multiple characters to play as. And for whatever reason,
Oh, what the
I have
hell?
never been able to
You son of a bitch.
navigate the dungeons in that game properly. I either pick the wrong character and get stuck somewhere and can't get out because that character can't jump high enough, or I pick someone who's too weak for a certain area and I just get my ass handed to me. There's
doing?
so
What are you
many
doing?
elements to that
Oh,
game that
shit.
can go wrong, and you really need to be able to navigate it with the right characters, which means you have to go back.
Can you
like,
please?
navigate all the way back
Give me
to
a
the
star.
beginning of the dungeon every time to swap characters
Oh.
back at home? Because there's Mama, Papa, the brother, the sister,
All right.
the grandmother, I think, and the
Son of a
dog.
bitch. Jumps. More jumps.
That's quite the party.
And it's a pretty difficult game in a lot
Whoop,
of
okay.
regards in terms
No.
of you know, how
Oh,
enemies
fucking way.
act. You know, you actually have an ammo count of sorts.
Okay.
It's got puzzles and exploration and difficult fights.
Okay,
and
can't eat that.
It's just one
Good
I've
to
never
know.
beaten, and I still intend to. That one is, as far as NES games go, that one will probably be my Everest.
That'll be it. That'll do it. That's
Got it.
interesting to hear, though. I kind of want to check that out now because the party alone that you have there that you mentioned is pretty intriguing.
You just want to play as a dog.
You're not wrong.
Oh, I usually did. He turned into a little dragon.
What?
See, that's even better. All right.
Okay,
How about
what am I doing?
GP, man?
No,
what about you? What
for
was some of
fuck's
your
sakes.
most feared games? I know you probably conquered a few now in the last while with all the blind plays you've been doing and ones that you may have feared, like Battletoads.
Oh yeah, a lot of these. Well,
Give me a
in the
star.
past year we've beaten a lot of games.
Thank you.
They've been blind runs.
Nope.
So I haven't really been afraid of them because I haven't known anything about them. So I'll answer it this way. Currently, the one game I've seen a little bit of that I have no
Okay.
desire to play is Ghosts and Goblins. We did the blind run of Super Ghouls and Ghosts, and I fell hard in love with that game. And then going back and looking at Ghosts and Goblins, I just don't have the desire to play it. It looks bad. It sounds a little bad.
Oh my
And
God.
it's just
Nope.
it's not
Oh,
there
Jesus
for me.
Christ.
But the one game
That's fair.
the one game growing up that I felt so accomplished when I beat it, and I'm gonna get some shit for this,
Go
is it's an
Go back.
LJN game
Okay.
called Jaws, based off of Jaws for the Revenge,
mean-
starring Michael Caine.
Oh,
And
crap. Jesus.
It's just like the movie.
yeah, right. HMA Michael Caine. Okay, so here's the reason I'm afraid of it. We're gonna cut that part out, but the reason
No, we cut nothing out.
I celebrated my victory over that game was that game. We swam all the time growing up, and I had this
fuck?
fear of sharks, even in swimming pools. You know how it is. But that game, my older brother, who
fuck
could beat
yeah.
everything,
Shit,
could
he's
not
still
beat
alive.
Jaws.
Why is he still
And
alive?
So to try to even fathom playing the game that my brother could not play was just, it was out of my league. And so fast forward 30 years, now I'm technically a man, and I've played it and I've beaten it. And of course, if you've ever beaten it, you understand how shitty the ending is. If you haven't played it, maybe just YouTube it. Don't worry about beating it.
No.
Oh my growing up, it was Jaws or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. As an adult, I've beaten them both. Ninja Turtles much more rewarding.
Tell me,
and
this
just
this
completely
boss.
forget Ghosts and
I
Goblins.
fucking hate it.
Okay,
This game
that's fair.
sucks.
I gotta say, I agree with you when it comes to Ghosts and Goblins. I love Super Ghouls and Ghosts. It's probably one of my favorite games.
Okay.
But I have no desire to play Ghosts and Goblins. So
Ghosts and Goblins and Jaws can confirm both of those sentiments from GP.
Jesus Christ.
The thing about Ghosts and Goblins, though, is that, I mean, the Infinite Continues, it's actually beatable, and it is definitely a hard game. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But with the Infinite Continues, it makes it doable.
It's just a rough experience after you've gone through Super Ghouls and Ghosts already.
Oh, I agree with that, for sure.
And do you, after you've beaten it, do you feel accomplished? Or do you feel like, well, that was a thing I did?
No, you know why? Because you have to beat it a second time to get the ending.
Right.
They make you do it twice.
and that's where I want to argue about bad game design. But but that's, I gotta say,
No.
no, I
Jesus
love the
Christ.
second one. So, and Jake's completely right. You know, it's hard, but yeah, going back a second time.
Fuck you. Yes.
So yeah, Jake, would that
Fucking
be
suck it.
one that you were afraid to play?
No, actually, well, okay, at first probably, but when I played it recently
Brutal.
on the Nintendo Switch, they did
Hardest
release it,
game.
and when I
11th
realized it was
hardest
Infinite
Nintendo
Continues,
game.
I didn't finish
Done.
it, but I got quite deep into the game.
I don't even want to play the rest of this game.
So it's one that
I'm
I actually
done.
look forward to playing. But
Done.
compared to the Super Girls and Ghosts, you guys are right. It's not a game you go back to. It's not like you're going to play Super
Oh,
Metroid. You want to play the original
so
Metroid to
good.
see what
Fuck
it's like.
you.
Once you've tasted 16-bit in that series,
Honestly.
you don't want to go back. I agree with that. But for me, in the game that I fear, the game that's probably most difficult for me,
If you say Kirby, this podcast
it's
is over.
difficult for all the wrong reasons.
It is.
Look, man,
See?
Kirby is difficult. I'll fight you. All right, that Game Boy game, There's a hard mode in it. I beat the hard mode. I was accomplished as a kid. I know we've established, according to GP's kids, that I am a dirty casual, and that's fine.
I even beat the Game Boy
But
game recently,
No, the game
too.
that was hard for me was
So-
actually hard for all the wrong reasons, and it's ported on everything. But I did play it on the Nintendo originally, and it was Bart versus the Space Mutants.
Oh,
Has
yeah.
anybody played that game?
Yes.
Dude, that is. I've
Not only a
gotten to the
hard game,
second
but Bart's
level.
also a shitty game, too.
Werewolf. Sorry.
Fuck you.
That one was actually recently given to me by GP, and
Complete in box. Very nice.
oh yeah, I love having it on my shelf.
Yeah, on the shelf is where it looks good.
I don't so much love having it in my toaster.
Okay, all right. You know, forget the UFO.
No, but
Who
that
needs
game
a
is
UFO?
hard. So I mean, you guys have played, which is great. The first level, the game is every stage you're collecting something. The first level is fun. Actually, it's not bad. There's lots of Easter eggs in it. You're trying to find things that are purple and paint them. The second level, I think, is balloons or coins or shoes or something. But the level that really set me on the edge, that really got me, was the museum level where you're collecting exit signs, which is the dumbest concept. But first off, they're all high up, and half the time you have to use ammo to shoot them. That's the one problem.
Okay.
But there's
I
one
mean-
section in particular that is always maddening
okay.
to me, and it's the tar pits.
Why are we still
You have
playing
to
this
jump
game?
across tar pits, and the platforms. See, this game, it's been ported to every system, and it shows in how janky it is. It's like they never quite got the hitboxes right to me. Every jump in that game
Nope.
is perilous.
What the
Whether
hell
I
are
feel
you
like
doing,
if I'm
Kirby?
off by a couple pixels, even if they're invisible, they're enough to like make that jump fail. And you fall in tar pits,
All right.
you die instantly. And that's one of the grudges I have in most games. And this even goes to
Can't believe
games
we
that
beat
are
that boss.
treasured like Mega Man. If there's instant death because of that kind of concept, spikes or lava, I hate it. Like Mario's an exception because you can usually avoid it, but like games where you have that just random instant
hell's
death
this?
because of pits and spikes drives me nuts and just sets me on the edge. And that museum level, those tar pits, I don't think I ever did beat that.
Okay,
And
this
I
power up.
Want to try?
is
There's
not
one
good
streamer I've been watching, and
for
he
this
goes
area.
through it, and he's good at the game. Like he speeds runs it, and he has issues with the tar pits. So it just tells me that how difficult, not just artificially, because there's limited lives and whatnot, but difficult in that the hitboxes, the design of the game was done badly, and it's hard to judge jumps.
Nothing?
Right? And difficult by design because they put all these signs you're going to collect high up and in difficult spots, making it just hard to get through the level. Just it's hard for all the wrong reasons. I just do not like that game for the difficulty.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. We were talking about that earlier, but you know, you had teams of
All right,
people
swim,
playing
swim,
games
swim.
and stuff. Might have gotten tested. Some games definitely didn't get tested enough. Other games probably tested so much to the point where they became harder. You know, so when it comes to that, you know, you have to take into account about people actually having time to develop their game fully. Was this game released, finished, or were they on like a time crunch? You know, there's a bunch of angles and stuff.
Random
Sometimes
green
you'll never
block,
know
you
these
know, what's
things.
the deal
but
with that? But that's
no.
okay.
when a good game
All
comes
right.
along, I think you know it. You might
Oh,
get really
like,
salty
How
at
the
it,
hell?
but if you beat it,
I'm at full health, but
Well,
that's just
laugh.
mean. That's just
yeah,
wrong.
guys. I kind of out of ideas here now. Otherwise, we'll be talking for another 6 hours. So,
Actually, we
do
should
have
do another
wonderful
episode on NES Hard. This
oh,
is
what's
a good
that?
one.
What's that?
It wasn't until doing
Oh.
research for this podcast that
Oh yeah. Okay.
I had ever heard that
What the
NES hard
fuck?
games were
What the
due to
fuck?
bad game design. That was something that I had never heard until these last 2 weeks.
I
don't know
only
why
heard
that
it.
is.
Why?
Oh, I don't know why that is.
Fuck
Like, for
you. How
me,
about that?
like all the people I know who play video
Thank
games
you.
grew up playing video games
Got it.
the same age as I did. So
Yeah.
you know, NES games were just brutal. We
It's
accepted
different.
it. We moved on.
How much
Yeah.
is left in this game?
It's definitely.
I've never been
you
this
know,
this far.
a younger generation.
This is stupid,
too,
but
'cause
the Sun and the Moon
I'm
was such a
mid-30s,
barrier
you
to me
guys
as a
are,
kid.
You know, late 40s. It's all cool.
Like, where's King
Um,
DDD?
Kids, like younger kids, are like, you know, this is crap. This is too hard and stuff like that because they've never experienced this whole thing. So, you know, that generation gap between modern gaming and how
No,
games
that
are
works.
designed and planned now versus how they were made back then are two different things, you know. I don't want to bring up Dark Souls and just start preaching on that
Okay.
one because everybody
Sweet.
else probably already has. But it is one
Dark
of the
Souls
most
is another game I
true
have not
to
played,
original game designs
very
when
much
it comes
of.
to like the NES era,
One
because
of those games where I died in the first boss.
it has the same kind of mechanics.
know.
You have to take your time. You have to learn.
Not as hard as Kirby.
patterns. You die. You suffer. You learn.
What the hell is this level?
And sometimes you die because the game straight up lied to you.
Yeah.
All right.
And we
All
call
the dragons are dead. Oh, look, a dragon corpse. Oh, look, it ate me.
that. Yeah, that's why I'm
Get
not
me out of
playing
this
that
level.
game, because I know that's going to happen to me. No, but that's all these things. See, it shows how subjective these things are. But bad design, I think, has become an excuse, especially for
Come on.
a generation that doesn't know so much.
No. Work
Versus
it. Let's
ones
go.
that experienced it growing up. So I don't want to say ignorance, or because that sounds
Oh,
rude.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Really?
Maybe it's ignorance is bliss kind of deal.
Come on. Come on.
I just feel like if you're
Keep
going to
going.
blame the design choices, at least have ideas of why. You
Yeah.
can't just say, "Oh, it's bad design." If you don't have something to back it up,
Jesus.
it's probably not
Nope.
quite as bad
That's
design
a
as you think it is.
fucking
Exactly.
can it. All
So
right. You know what?
I
We'll
think
just
it's
go.
more of an
We'll just go.
excuse, and that's probably why I wanted
just
to
go.
argue against that excuse. So, yeah, that's. I think we've hammered it home
man.
enough here, guys. I want to thank you for listening to me ramble about stuff.
At least you
because
start
that's-
back here.
There's so many
That's
elements of this
good.
that couldn't keep my thoughts straight. Just for anybody who's interested in finding some more content by these lovely gentlemen, how about we start with GP and let's go talk where we can find more of our hosts.
Wait, can I go up
Sure,
here?
thank you.
No.
You can find me on Twitch as The Retro Therapy, and then also
Okay.
on Twitter and Instagram.
Just being cautious. He still got me.
As also The Retro
You're
Therapy.
Fuck being cautious.
Modern,
Didn't matter.
sexy ass gamer.
Did
No,
not
wait, that's
matter.
me.
Nice. Nope. No sexy ass, just therapy.
Okay, cool.
All right.
All right, and
All
Jake,
right.
how about you, man? And where can we find you?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at SickJake, or I'm also a part-time, semi-annual, buy-never streamer on Twitch at twitch.tv/SickJake.
And now YouTube, apparently.
Sounds so rehearsed and sounds so beautiful when it comes out of your mouth. I'm just, oh, God. Teach
Polish
me.
is always the flirt. Can we just get to
And
the
how about
exit
your
Bullshitting
now?
is strong when you have kids.
Nice. And then Werewolf, how
Jesus.
about you, man? Where can we
Fucking
find more
brutal.
of
This game is nuts.
You
Just
can find
nuts.
me on Twitter and Twitch at Werewolf, WAREWULFF. And thank you again. I'd just like to reiterate, thank you guys for having me on the show finally.
Yeah, no problem, man. It's great to have you here for the first time ever. Anyways,
Brutal.
if you want
All
to
right.
find more, you can always
4?
come back.
I guess.
If not, press B to cancel.
Oh, that's our episode. Special thanks for music go to Arthur the Ancient, found on SoundCloud. I did like
or
that
The
one.
Last Ancient on YouTube.
I might be biased.
For more
but, you
episodes,
know.
please visit our website, pressbtocancel.com. As well, feel free to like or subscribe at Apple iTunes, Google Podcasts, or anywhere
Fuck, do
else
they
you'd like
go?
to listen to your favorite shows.
Whoa.
As always, thank you.
What the hell's
This
that?
has been
Press B to
Press B to cancel. All right, hold on one sec. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. I've seen this movie. Let us get this up real quick. Get that soundtrack. I know you've been dying for the Kirby. Oh, okay. That's just ass. Just ass. You know? Okay. I mean, this is gonna be my favorite power-up for sure. This tire thing. Got it. Okay. You know. I do like this bean one too, but the tire is the most fun. Of course. What does he do? Yep, alright, fine. What is with the body slams in this fucking game? You know? One more time. Just shoot your shit. Come on. Oh my god. Why? They're all ridiculous. Every last boss in this game is ridiculous. Every last fucking one. I don't care who you are. Yep. Okay. Can I? Okay. All right. You know, that's fine. Like nuts. Like he does that. What is that spinning around fatality thing? Like this is Kirby, not freaking Mortal Kombat, you know? Like nuts. Yeah. All right. I can fucking Sub-Zero you guys too. Look at this. Your spine is mine. Gosh, that's a thought. Kirby Shang Tsung. Absorbing people's powers. Devours them. Maybe not their soul, their body. Kirby is Shang Tsung. Fucking confirmed. Take that. Oh, my back is killing me. What's that? Old man complaining about back? Yeah. What the fuck? Okay. He just gives me a piece of candy? Is that what he does? Is that like the Proto Man moment? Alright. So weird. It's odd that the level takes mercy on you. Oh, okay. Yeah, I still got throw. Yeah. Did I say easy? Yeah, okay. But like, you know, it's just stupid. Like it's just stupid. That's all this is. Do I want to go this way? I probably don't, do I? Alright, we got this. Got you too, motherfucker. Alright. I mean, at least we got those guys kind of now. Really? Come on, man. Like, what the fuck? Jesus. One freaking health bar left, man. One freaking health. Let's just go. Let's just go. Okay. I start back here, though, right? Yeah. At least is that. Whoop, okay. Oh, what the hell do you do there? For fuck's sakes. Like, okay. No. I can't believe I didn't get hit. Can't believe it. Can't believe it. This game's nuts. Okay. That works? Hold on. Hold on. I don't have to eat something? What, 6 worlds in and this is when I learned this shit? Yeah, nothing. That's what I got. So I looked up online how long this game is to beat. It was like 6 hours? Casually? I don't know. I mean, we're just over an hour. Alright, now that I know this freaking works. Like, what a joke. Ugh. Yep. Like, alright. Yeah, you know, it's fine. Alright, so I have 3 uses of this microphone. There's one. As they swarm around you. Like freaking bees. Gotcha. I don't know what the hell that thing is yet. Alright. Okay. Oh, shit. What a waste. What a waste. Oh, no. You know? Oh, well. I was thinking I needed a hammer power-up, but I didn't have one. What the hell? Alright, whatever. Take it, Kirby. Take it. Alright, I'm out of caffeine. Out of the carbonation. Fuel's running low. Time for a boss. Oh, shit. Yep. Okay. Okay. Like... Come on, man. Well, how the hell do you hit him? Oh, okay. All right, asshole. Holy crap. All right. Can you not fall off the freaking edge? Where is he? Okay. This is ridiculous. That didn't work. As he fucking homes in on you. Can you not? Wow. He just goes for you. Oh, he has no health. Does that mean he's... Oh, is he not a boss? Hold on. Oh my god, really? It's a chase sequence? Fuck. Oh, what am I supposed to do there? Jeez. Yep. Well. One health. That's what we're gonna do, huh? Good job, Kirby. You really karate kicked that motherfucker. That's good job. Yeah. Okay, that's not what I wanted. But okay. Yep, that's fine. What? Okay, we don't want this. I don't even know how that freaking worked. At least got hit off. What? No. Like... But you tell me 5 times that it doesn't touch me, but the one time it hits me? The fuck is that? No, this makes a lot more sense. Oh yeah, okay. I mean, if only, right? Alright. That part is less of an issue. Yep, okay. Alright. Yep, okay. He's a hard one, for sure. Yeah, no. That's okay. Yep. Didn't really need to do that, but okay. Holy Jesus. Alright. Up, 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 you son of a bitch. There you go. I mean, okay. Really? I mean, okay. He has so much health, man. This is nuts. I mean, we only died once. He's no Sun and Moon. That was still hard. That was still hard. Like, I don't even know what... How much more do we get left to go? Level 5. Yogurt. What time is it? 9:30. Well, I'm going to finish this game, just not tonight. Is there a way to save? Is that a thing? I hope you can save. Anyway, if you like this, feel free to put a comment down, let me know. I don't know if this is kind of a thing worth doing or not. I like listening to the old episodes of the podcast. I like doing the footage this way. And it gives me a chance to go back and play these hard-ass Nintendo games. I still stand by that. I'm going to finish this probably on Twitch. Well, maybe I'll do it here. I don't know. But if you like it, hey, hit the subscribe button. And please check out Press B to Cancel, our podcast. We do weekly episodes, both on Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, fucking everywhere. And now on YouTube. So just search Press B to Cancel on YouTube. And I'll put links in the description down below. But subscribe. That's important. My name is Sig Jake. And this has been, what do I call this? Talking over Press B. Thanks for watching.